Welcome to the Mach49 Innovation Heroes conversation. It's my pleasure to welcome you to a conversation between Sukhjinder Singh, who's currently the CEO of Pear.AI, and Dave Blakely, who of course is a partner with Mach49. And I'm Huggy Rao, who's a faculty partner with Mach49, and I also happen to impersonate a professor at Stanford Business School. This morning, we're very fortunate to have two people who've really worked together for a long time. They started as acquaintances and they became friends as part of the Mach49 journey. And I thought I'd be a little mischievous and ask Sukhjinder, hey, how did you introduce yourself to your wife?
Thanks, Huggy. Thanks for the question, but thanks for being part of this and interesting question. And it's really fresh on my mind, how I did that. So what happened is I was back in the Netherlands and I used to play field hockey. And I was 17 years old. And there was this girls group which wanted to go for a weekend away, a field camp. And some of the girls which were there knew me and they said, so they went to their parents and said, we want to go to this field trip. And well, we don't want parents because that's what they are. Who do we need to take along to be okay? And then the parents said, no, if you take Sukhjinder, it's fine. I was part of the board at the field hockey club. So like the ideal son-in-law, so fine. So I said, yeah, of course, girls, I will join you. So what we do is we go for this weekend, we drive up, it was a 2-hour drive. And then, there was the bridge opened. So, we stopped and, as I am, I can't just sit. So I moved out, went out of the car to look at those ships. And when I was looking at it, I turned around and I saw this car and I saw this girl sitting in that car. And I thought, wow, it was really, it's like, this thing that struck me. And I saw she was in a car with some other girls, which were part of this group. So, bridge goes down, so I go back and the whole thing I'm thinking, I need to go and see her. So we come at the camping place and everybody's putting up their camps and I said, no, I want to find this girl. So what I do is I said, how do I do that? So I grab a super soaker, a water gun, I fill it up and I go around looking at this camping place. And then I saw her, putting up this tent and I go in and the first thing I do is I just, wet her, I just, with the super soaker and she looks at me like, what the hell? And she runs behind me. And then, she grabs me and said, what was that? And I said, I had to do it. So that are the first sentence I said to my wife. And I think, and we're now 22 years later and we're still happily together.
Fabulous. That's a really fabulous story. So Dave, if I can bring you in right away, was this the impression you had of Sukhjinder? Somebody who was ready to use a spray gun in order to meet a young lady he wanted to meet, but yet trusted by authority figures as a safe son-in-law?
I have no trouble recognizing the Sukhjinder who blasted a woman he didn't even know with a soaker gun. It is possible. I met Sukhjinder many years ago when we started by brainstorming a broad variety of ideas to incubate his energy startup around. Maybe one day Sukhjinder will have a low energy moment. Maybe one day he'll be plagued with fear or worry or self-doubt. The fact is, I'm still waiting. Haven't seen it. Don't know if I ever will. Sukhjinder is a manic depressive who never cycles down. This man is always on. He was born ready. I could tell as soon as I met him, he's one of these guys who is just hormonally optimistic, future-oriented, and enthusiastic. And in my mind, therefore, a born Silicon Valley entrepreneur.
I love the description, Dave. So let me ask this question of you, Sukhjinder, and here you are. You finished from Erasmus in Rotterdam and you join KPMG.
Yeah.
How is it for the optimistic, hard driving, charge forward kind of person to be in a company like KPMG. What was it like for you? And how long did it take for you to move to the next company?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it was a little bit of a strange time, because what I was doing, I was traveling around the world. So I finished my studies very early. So I finished Erasmus on a very young age, and not because I'm that smart, because I believe if you want to do something, you do it. And that was with the university. This is what I wanted to do. So I finished as one of the earliest one on the university itself. And then I said, I want to travel around the world. So I started traveling around the world. But what happened is my father passed away. So I had to come back because of my father passed away. And then when I came back, and everybody said, are you going traveling again? No, I wanted to do that. I did it. It stopped. Hey, it happens. And now I'm back and I'm doing that. And then I had to go for a job. And then a friend of mine said, hey, Sukhjinder, would you like to work for KPMG? And I said, listen, I'm not an accountant. That's the first thing which came up to me. And they said, no, we have a special department which helps companies, really go in to help companies to reorganize or restructure it. So it's really like it's going as a change agent into it. And I said, that sounds interesting. And he said, I'll hook you up with the director of KPMG, that specific department. And he did so. And he just said, I want you. When can you start? I say, yeah, tomorrow. I'm ready to do. And that's how I started at KPMG. And then the story was that I was put on a project where normally they have other people to join. No, I was put in a project to reorganize a whole department at the big bank. And that was my first job. And and that's what I like to do.
That's fascinating. So you went into KPMG and you were reorganizing and disrupting, if you will. What was it like at Shell?
So the interesting part was, and the pivot way came to Shell is, so then Shell came around and they wanted to do a project. So they hired KPMG to do a specific project. And they said, hey, we have Sukhjinder. So, and I went there and, I thought, well, and it was a whole reorganization of a whole bunch of subsidiaries which were part of the Shell company. And I went there and I still remember. So I came in and just imagine Shell is an old established company. So there were people over there which were a little bit older than I am. And they saw me coming, in this car, a young guy. And the first thing, and this is what I heard afterwards, they said, this young guy is coming. Is he going to help us? We're going to put him to the challenge. So I didn't knew that at that. So what they did is I came in and I still remember. So I was a young guy and they said, hey, Sukhjinder, you coming to help? That's fine. And they gave me a box of cards, and really it was a big box, and it was the asset ledger. So all the assets they have was on this paper cardboard, a whole box full. And he said, hey, Sukhjinder, you want to start somewhere? We need this first, organized first. And I said, oh, yeah, fine, and of course you did. And what I did that. I did that. I took the box and, they thought he's never coming back. But I think 3 days later, 3 days, 18 hours a day was done. And I said, here you go. And then I didn't organize it. So I think there are some mistakes in it. I think somebody, because what you do is you do it manually, putting the depreciation on those cards. I also found some mistakes. So that is how I had my entry into Shell. And then once I did this, these guys, the people over there, they said, you're the guy, you're young, but we know that you can do it and you want to willing to do. So that was my, let's say, the test case, which was at Shell. I didn't know that at that moment, but they told me afterwards. And then I came at Shell and I stayed there. And then very soon Shell said, we want you in Shell. Because, your capabilities and whatever you can do, we want you to be part of Shell. And this is how I moved from KPMG to Shell. And as you can imagine, it's always a little bit tricky that the consultants is going to work for the customer. They don't allow that because you want to, but no, KPMG was important for Shell, and Shell said, this is what we want, and it happened. So that is how I went to Shell.
It's a love from your boss or superior to tell you were going to be involved in a project with Mach49. So take me to that very first moment.
So the very first moment was, and I still remember the call where the Patrick Lammers, had said, hey, Sukhjinder, we're going to do this project in San Francisco. And, it's going to be something new, creating a new business. That was it. It was an idea to create a whole new business. And hey, then you have my attention. And he knew that. He knows me long. And I was already moving to San Francisco, anyway. And I said, yes. And then normal people then, like boss will say, do you want to know the details? No, no, no. It's a yes. It's just yes. And he knew that he didn't have to ask anymore. And then, we worked out the details much later. So I said yes. He said yes to Mach49. And then we started doing the details.
So wait a minute, I just want to understand. You didn't ask him, how much am I going to be paid?
No.
This, that, and the other. Yes, ready to go.
Ready to go, because, I think in life, sometimes we make things too complicated. And that is where I don't think. I think, there is an opportunity. Look, I can have 1,000 reasons, I always say, to say something to no. Give me one good reason to say yes, and I'll do it. And that's what I did here. I know Patrick. I trusted him. If he comes with an offer, I don't have to ask more. And why? So I said yes.
So you're in the Bay Area?
Yes.
You meet Dave, you have a team, I assume, and then you meet Dave and other Mach49ers. Walk me through that first meeting. What was it like?
He was just, I like to say, you can have different words for it, so inspirational, it was like I say, wow, so all those elements, because it was just a whole new environment I wasn't used to, because in the Netherlands, the way Silicon Valley does entrepreneurship, how they look about doing things, disrupting, this positive things about let's do things. I love that. And that's what you saw in this meeting. In this meeting, you saw, hey guys, we're going to do this. And I just liked it. And also, and look, the other thing is, Huggy, my feeling is, we talk about companies and we build companies, and companies are all built by people. And I keep on saying that people, you can have the best product, but that best product is created by people. So people make companies. And that's also what I saw with Mach49. When I saw that, I say, these are people I could trust and I can work with together to build something. So that was the first thing which came into my mind.
Came into your mind. Dave, what was it like for you? Can you walk me through your first meeting with Sukhi and his team?
Sure. I want to quickly point something out. Huggy, we've talked to several CEOs of startups. Travel is a consistent theme. Travel as sort of a formative piece of development. One of the first things we heard from Sukhjinder was that he hit the road. Mark Twain once said, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness."
Beautiful line.
Yeah.
Travel doesn't change someone, just the act of travel, but someone who's open-minded, someone who's open to gaining new insights into the human condition will learn so much from travel about how the world works. And it's an interesting thing. We choose team leads terribly carefully with our clients for these Mach49 programs, team leads who, like Sukhjinder, ultimately become CEOs. And so often that sort of curious, energetic mindset loves to travel. In Sukhinder's case, hitting the road until his father got ill, and then once again hitting the road. His family found its way from Bengal to Holland to the East San Francisco Bay, and who knows where it'll end.
Yeah. I love that quote from Mark Twain, Dave. I think it's wonderfully appropriate.
Let me
So
share.
there you are after the first meeting. Where were the rest of your team members, Sukhjinder? You were excited, ready to go. What about your team members? Were they all ready and excited to go, or having worked in a large traditional company, were they at different places?
No, and this is where I think one of the first things which Mach49 brought into it, and I think this already sets them differently, because what happened is I came here and I had one other colleagues which came from the mothership, from the company itself, from RWE. But then the whole idea was with the network, Mach49 they will complement the team. because you want local spirits, you want local people which are coming from the last thing you want also is having, you know, let's say the big corporate people coming out into this organization and running it like, you know, it's another project we're doing. No, you want to really start a new company and you need fresh people into it. So this is one of the first exercises that would happen together with Dave, you know, and especially with Linda. What we then is selected people, you know, out of this area, which could complement the team. So that's what we did. We got local people, which we hired to do this whole, you know, let's say the incubation with.
So you've started the incubation process with Dave and his team. If you think of it as a journey, what were the big milestones in this journey for you?
I think the first big milestone, it was, you know, the very first one is, let's say, it's first knowing Mach49. That first meeting, I think, says a lot, because that is the foundation on which you're going to work together. So that was already, there was a Mach49 which says, listen, this is what we're going to do. This is and they didn't know much about energy. No, let's be honest, but the way they structured it, the way they explained it, that the foundation was built in that first meeting, because then we know what the expectations were, we know what we're going to do, and also how we're going to work together, the people. So I think that was the very first where I got said, this is going to work. This is going to be at least fun, because you never know what the end result is, but at least I will have a lot of fun here and I will learn. The second for me came is when we started doing have the team ready. So we hired some additional people. Then you can see, okay, this is now the team which we're going to do it. So that was for me the second element where you can, okay, now we're going to do that. And I think then after that, for me, where it really hits is when we did the report out, because you go through the process and happy to give some examples of the process itself. But for me, the third element was really when we presented back to the board of RWE and say, this is what we're going to do. And that was a moment where I thought, gosh, all that work we have done is coming now in a story we're going to tell in 1 hour to that, you know, to the RWE board. And that was exciting, because you're working towards that. So that was just fantastic.
Wonderful. What's your recollection, if you will, of the milestones in the journey with Sukhjinder and his team, Dave, for you?
I'd like to build a little bit on one of the milestones very early on that Sukhjinder found important. You know, we have preconditions for success at Mach49. We discriminate in terms of who we choose to work with. And one precondition of success is that corporate governance must be lifted. It's very easy for leadership in an organization to say, oh, sure, we'll stay off your back. It's a whole nother matter to see that in action. And there's no better litmus test for lifting of corporate governance than purchasing and hiring. So Sukhjinder will remember the story I'm about to tell. In Silicon Valley, qualified people get snapped up just like that. Okay.
Right.
You can't do the normal big corporate thing where you screw around on a decision, any decision, for 4 or 6 or 8 weeks. Somebody good shows up, you've got to grab them. A man named Pear.AI, who's still with the organization, showed up. We all interviewed him, had a good group interview, and naturally we had pre-qualified him and checked with his references and so on. In what was obviously a transparent ruse, you know, I think this was probably day 1 of the program and we needed to hire people. I offered to give Peter a tour of our incubator. We stepped out. I told him, and I'm sure he knew what was going on, I've got to get my phone. I walked back in. I said to Sukhjinder and his 2 colleagues, look, this guy's not going to last. You need to make a decision while I'm touring him. Sukhjinder, you want to finish the story? What happened when we returned from a 3-minute tour?
You were hired. Yeah, that's it.
They made the move. They made the move.
That's amazing.
Corporate governance had been lifted. I knew at that point, that was a really pivotal moment for me. It meant much more than people realized. I knew at that point that Pear.AI was prepared to move at the speed of a startup.
Yeah, no, I like it, Dave. I really like that example, because I still remember that, you know, because you left us in that room And that is what you need to do. You find somebody, you go for it. But also to add to this, what was also very important is that he was there face to face. So it was really there. What happened is, because I still remember, we had Peter on the phone also, and I had a phone call with him. And I remember the discussion. Remember, Dave, we said, I think it's Peter, and he is, but look what I'm missing, what I need to see him, because that is how I am. I need to feel, I need to touch, I need to see. So this is where Dave said, Sukhinder, it is hot, but I'm going to call him, ask him over, and then we do it. I said, great. So that was the other thing I want to add is we all had them at the office and we decided. But that is also, and I like the example, Dave. But now when you're talking, maybe Huggy, another milestone, while we think about it, which I found also, and just amplifies how Mach49 is. At a certain stage, we also had like senior management, and Mach49 really sees this is the incubation team. And mothership management is done by Mach49, because as you know, you get all kinds of people asking, and we are working. We don't want to be diverted. And that was handled by the Mach49 team, by Dave, by Linda. And then what happened is there was this people wanted to come over, and just see what's going on. And it would take like a whole day to entertain that. But we were busy. We were in the interviews and everything. And this is where I think also Mach49 differentiate. They spoke with that leadership, say, no, you want something, we will happy to help you out and what you need. But the team is busy, they're working on here, let them work. So it was also, and that is also, it's not just a milestone, but overall, Mach49, when the first time that happened, and that is maybe the milestone, the first time I said, this is fantastic. I and my team can really focus on incubation, while Mach49 is watching my back, helping me, but also taking, managing the leadership, all the corporates, away from me. And it was fantastic.
That was wonderful. Dave, what was it like for you? Were you the buffer between the innovation team and corporate management, as Sukhinder implies? What did that entail?
We have a division of responsibility at Mach49, and I certainly spent some time working with the leadership. In fact, like Sukhinder, I have a good ongoing relationship with Patrick Lammers, who looked after the new venture board. Linda Yates, our CEO, did the majority of the interaction. Really, the majority of my time was spent working with the team, helping them through that, those essential milestones and that essential process of going from early stage customer insights to visualizing a variety of new lines of business to validating that new line of business. And what really kept us busy was finding the pain. Yeah. We got some signals from the market, but Huggy, they were lukewarm signals for a long time, and we really had to dig to find what would truly be meaningful to people.
Mm. Now, as we go into this, one question, Sukhinder, is you're familiar, of course, with consulting firms. You worked at KPMG yourself. I'm sure when you were at Shell, Shell must have hired McKinsey or Bain or BCG or any of the usual suspects. How was the Mach49 process different?
Yeah, I think, I've heard this before. There is just no comparison. Mach49 stands on its own, and it's already, the whole difference is incubation. It's something on its innovating is a whole discipline on its own. Like consultancy is, and they're doing projects. I always say is, what consultants, they do a project. Hey, I need to do this, I need to do that. It's project. What Mach49 is incubate, creating new businesses. And that is for me, nowhere near consulting. That's why I don't think they're even close to each other. And this whole incubation, innovating, because just go back to some of corporates. If you ask them, what is innovating? Innovating is, we have seen this company that could be interesting and, we'll take a stake into it. I said, no, that's M&A. For me, innovating is really creating something from the bottom up. There could be nothing and you create something. And that is what I think Mach49 does. They really use the resources and then create value. Where consultants, they're just doing a project. So that is how and I've been a consultant myself, so I know where it's coming from. And that's why I was so excited to do it with Mach49. And just imagine that you're doing an incubation and you're hiring new people in your team. That is what you're doing. You're trying to find pain. You're doing all these interviews we did. I don't know how many interviews we did, Dave. We synthesized, that whole process, working towards creating that business. Yeah, that is something unique. That is just unique. And I haven't seen it anywhere.
So, in the process, you listened to the customer, you did light prototyping, medium fidelity prototyping. So I want to sort of focus on, in this conversation, a little bit more on, you do all this work. What's it like presenting to the board? You said that was like a defining moment. What did you present to the board, Sukhinder?
So, and it was great. And I think already Dave said it, it's finding that pain. And what we had is when we started, we clearly had, 3 ideas, which could lead into it. And I think one of the milestones, I think we're coming back to milestone, was really, we can't do those 3. So we said, this is the one we're going to do it. And that was, already, again, a very defining a milestone for ourselves, because you can't go to a board and say, we have 3 ideas and everything. No, you want to go there with the idea you just believe in. So what I liked is, and also presenting to the board, is that we were able to present an idea which, and I think it's the most important thing, I believe in. I think this has value to it. And that is also, so we presented it, that we have done this research. We started broad. We had 3 ideas. We narrowed down to 1. We have done the customer interviews. We have found pain. We found launching customers, that whole idea, and we were able to present that back to them. And of course, in an idea, also numbers come into, what is the size? But what I really found while we were presenting, it was that, we believed in it. There was a really thought process. And I still remember one of the questions the board came back to is, hey, Sukhinder, you're so enthusiastic. Would you invest in this center? And I said, yes, I would. And I think that is always also for a company you build, you should be able to also put your own skin in the game because you believe in it. And I think that is how I believe you should present it. You should present it that is, yay, I believe in it and I'm willing to put skin in the game and this is going to happen. And I think that's what we presented. And I think the board liked that. They really enjoyed it.
Was it different from a normal presentation at your company? The way you presented to the board, was it very much like normal presentations in the Shell culture?
No, Shell culture is at least you need 120 slides. It's more about, how they look, if they're consistent, and there are 4 elements, 5 elements needs to be part of it. Look, what I always say, consultants, they work for a certain pattern. This is the setup. This is what you need to do. And this is what I like with Mach49. And they've already said it. Every incubation could have a different report out. There are key elements into it. You need to come back to it. What is the pain? What is the business case? What are we trying to solve? And what is the route to market? So I think those all elements need to be part of, but it's more about how you tell the story. And that storytelling can be different for every single business you create. And that was really, really different. So the elements were there, but the elements were told in a story type of form. And backed also by real research, because that's another one, because a lot of those projects you will see with consultants are done behind the desk. We think this is that, we think that. And what I learned from Dave, and that was, is synthesizing. I still use it as of today, that where you interview customers, you ask them for the pain. And also the magic wand question, Dave, I still remember it. What is the magic wand question? You ask it to the customer. And what you do then is you get the feedback. And then very, very important, which is synthesize. We had all these interviews. What is the synthesis? What does it tell you? And I think that was, I still like Dave. And Dave also talked about about the qualities, the way Dave, and I still, whoever wants to hear it, yes or no, doesn't matter. I always say Dave, the way Dave can really, when you synthesis, and I do a synthesis, and I think the customer said this, and it's like a whole line. I think he said that he wants something like this. And Dave would come in and he could summarize it in 1 word. And that is just unique. That is so unique. because you could really summarize it and then come to a synthesis and find, what the pain points are and what you need to build. And it was fantastic to do it with Dave. Yeah, great.
Wonderful. Dave, what was the presentation like to the board, and what did the board do after the presentation?
So the best way to describe what the board did is to talk about what Pear.AI did, right? The board gave full support and approval for the creation, for Pear to move forward with the creation of SAM, which is this fantastic, in my opinion, product. SAM is an AI-enabled chatbot that gives energy managers relevant information about, energy, information relevant to their businesses about energy. If you go back in time about how they got there and how they were able to create SAM, to Sukhinder's point, we told a story. We told a very fundamental human story. And the story was clearly about a subset of people that experienced very real pain due to lack of energy knowledge, and the fact that we had uncontestable evidence that they would welcome solutions. What I want to draw out, though, is that where I really appreciate both the Pear.AI new venture team's hard work and also the understanding of their new venture board is this: it was not a straight line path to get there. This was a tough, circuitous project where we went here, when we went there. We had trouble finding small and medium-sized businesses to interview. We had a lot of trouble discovering what the biggest pain was. And to their credit, instead of demanding the traditional approach that big corporations take, starting with quantitative business models and revenue streams, starting with some new technology or new technology partners, no, they were willing to work with us, and they were all in around a truly customer-centered, pain point-centered approach. And this is what's significant, Huggy. Even when going got pretty tough, even when it was pretty hard to dredge a signal out of the noise, the new venture team stayed on task, and the new venture board stayed committed. And that's what led us to that solid, cohesive story that Sukhinder came out with, and in turn to the success of SAM and the successful acquisition of Pear.AI.
Yeah, and I love Dave. Sorry, Huggy, to say what Dave.
Go ahead.
I just love what you said, and you know what I also believe in, and Dave can say, look, you're doing this incubation, you're doing this startup. One of the important things also, I think it's a big difference between corporate and what we do with Mach49 incubation and the team itself, is be honest. And that is what other thing I want to say, because what you see, a consultant has to do that project. What we did is we said, we're going to do honestly, look, if it's nothing, we'll tell you there is nothing. Yeah. And I think that is the other important thing. And I always said to Patrick, Patrick Lammers and the board, and I said it from the beginning, I'm not sitting here to prolong things. If we see this is a dead end, I will be the first one to pull the plug out of it. And Dave and you would say, hey, don't do that, Mach49, but no, because there is money involved. This is what we're doing. So that is turnover. No. And that is what I liked. We had an agreement. We're going to do this. But if we see it's not working, I'm going to be the first one to pull the plug. And Dave and Linda said the same thing. We're going to be, because we're not consultants. We're not here to take that money. We want to create, we be successful. And success can also mean we tried it, there is nothing. And that's the other thing I would really want to say. And that is also what I think the board stuck with us, with me, but also with Mach49. We were honest. We told them sometimes, listen, we are struggling now. We are, 3 ideas, we're doing it. I was always open and upfront to it, but he said, still trust in us. And I think that's why they stuck with us, because we were honest and open to them.
Yeah. So, as I listen to all of you, and really the both of you, I'm actually struck by a very interesting study in decision making. When you choose out of 2 alternatives, there's a line of research that shows that you're likely to be wrong 51% of the time. When you consider more alternatives, your error rate goes down. So if you have 4 alternatives, your error rate goes down to 28% or something like that. So when you came up with this wonderful idea of SAM, the chatbot, I'm curious, how many alternatives did you consider before you focused on SAM?
Dave, we had many different alternates. So I couldn't tell you the number, but it was many. Because that
30, 20,
I would
40?
say around the 20. I think we were around the 20 figure, I would say. But what happened is because you had those, but I think while we came to Sam, when we came closer, is the customer interviews. As more we did the interviews, it gave us more pain points. So like Dave said, in the beginning, we were struggling to get access to those kind of customers to do the interviews. And what happens then is then you go all over because you can say, I can do this, I can do that.
Right.
But as soon as we got more customer interviews, we got more feedback, you were able to narrow it down. So that is one element. And the other element, which also I'm a strong believer in, and that is also what doesn't happen in consultancies, but you have a gut feeling. I must be also honest, and this is, I still believe that we are human beings. And one of our things is also, there is like a gut feeling. Am I always right? No. But I still will follow it. And that is also what I think what helped also with that is that you did this research, we got this feedback, we got it all back. And I think we were on the right path. But maybe that small edge, which you need to do it, is what you believe yourself, your gut feeling as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, whatever you want, or just as a human being. That is also what I think it makes the difference.
That's very helpful. So you meet the board, you present the idea of SAM to the board, the chatbot and how it can help. So Dave, what was the response of the board? To proceed with more internal development of SAM, or you mentioned an acquisition? Can you walk us through what happened there?
Well, Sukhjinder can walk us through the detailed steps, but what I recall was from the board meeting itself was that the board knew that that like a venture capital board of directors, they should take a page from the agile thinking playbook and create a series of sprints. The best startups startups actually do well with constrained resources, and that includes constrained budgets.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So as I recall, the board was quite enthusiastic. On the spot, you got approval to move forward, but I also believe that approval was aggressively stage gated, and I think there were additional stage gates all through.
You're absolutely right, Dave.
That's Sukhjinder?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Dave is absolutely right. And I think the proof point in the meeting itself, I still remember, because Sam is this, we call it a virtual energy expert. So you see, we have developed the naming on it. And I remember in the meeting, Patrick Lammer said, can you install it on my phone? That was what he asked. Can I have it? So that was and they approved it. And I think one important element which came after that is, so there was approval. They said, go along. But the most important thing was, how do you continue? Because what could have happened is they could say, hey, it's now going to be part of the corporate. We're going to stuck it in and do all that. No. And that is where I think, together with Linda Yates, Dave, and myself, I said, no. The next stage, I'm glad, thank you, board, for going there. But we're going to run it as a separate entity, totally separated. And that is what my prerequisite was. And they agreed with it, said, okay, we're going to do it in the way to separate it, not falling on the corporate organization. So the board stayed in place, so the innovation board. So they were going to, and like Dave said, I got some money to do the first, sprint. We did the first sprint. I got more money. We did the second sprint. I still remember the second sprint didn't go that well. And I said, listen, guys, we need to pause here because I need to, reassess a couple of things. We paused over there at the second sprint, we re-got it, and we went to the third sprint. Because I agree with what Dave, you should do this still as a startup. Because normally what you see, and another example, you don't want to load all kinds of people into it, because what happened, everybody said, hey, this company is successful, this startup. So what you see is in the corporate, hey, I want to go to San Francisco, I want to be part of that. That is the biggest issue you will see with corporate. Suddenly it will be loaded with all kinds of, and you're gone. No, we were able to keep it as a startup, and I will run it as a startup with all the constraints which came on board with, which made it successful.
So now you're a startup. What's your connection with Shell?
So what happened is Shell, so I'm still, because I've always worked at Shell, so I still have a connection with them. and they also have an innovation board. So they're also looking at, and they're already working together with Mach49. So yeah, so I still, and yeah, I think maybe there is a time also to reconnect again with Shell. So that might happen in the near future. But hey, I had great times with Shell, and I think there are great opportunities, in the energy space also for Shell. So that could happen.
Good. So now that your engagement with Mach49 is over, have you, and after the creating this independent company, Pear.AI, so what about the relationship between you and Dave? Do you continue to talk, or, if so, how frequently?
Yeah, so like you said, it's never over with Mach49. You try to run, it's not possible. It is really not. No, look, since then, we kept engaged, because one of the things you need is, like with Dave, we phone, and it could be sometimes I haven't spoken with him for 3 months, and suddenly we phone each other 3 times a week. So, and that is where I think, it comes close to, how you want to operate with each other. I don't need to phone every day Dave and say, hey, how are you? No, you know each other, you know where to find each other. And sometimes, it's like Dave said, here, I come to Arinda, say, you need to come over for a beer. That is one of the discussions. But it's also for me, sometimes I said, hey, Dave, I need some guidance from you. I just need somebody I can do a sounding board with, especially about synthesis. I'm going to do the synthesis. What do you think? And, so this is how me and Dave has been, being engaged with each other, helping out. I also had another business idea. I said, hey, because I don't sit still, Dave, just bounce with me. What do you think about this? And then he said, hey, that could be something nice. So this is how me and Dave, on a wide variety of things, not just Pear.AI, but also just on a personal level, and even other businesses I am starting up, I have, aligned with Dave. But that's not Dave. Same thing with Linda. Still have a strong relation with Linda. And, I just be honest, we just spent some days, on their beach house, where we were all together, and also with the husband, Paul. So, no, it's part of your life at the moment, Mach49. And also, Dave was giving a seminar in Singapore, a masterclass. So, Dave also asked, Dave, could you maybe also share your experiences? Of course, Dave. So, no, it's far off over. I don't think that relationship will go away.
That's lovely. How do you see this, Dave? I mean, Sukhinder has said large consulting firms give reports. They think of it as a project. How would you characterize the journey between you and Sukhinder and his team?
Mach49 appeals to a very different type of person in a large organization than a big consulting firm appeals to. There is a perfectly solid, perfectly good mindset that wants to commission reports. If you're wondering whether or not to make an acquisition of a particular company or whether to spin something off, nothing better than commissioning a project with a McKinsey, with a Bain, with a BCG, right? Makes perfect sense. We appeal to people who have one foot out the door. We appeal to people on a new venture board who look around and realize that disruption and disrupting their own business from within is an imperative. And we appeal to entrepreneurial people who think, look, I either need something really exciting to do at this place or I'm going to be gone. All right. So I would say the difference in the personality between Mach49 as a growth incubator and accelerator and a consulting firm, first and foremost, has to do with who we are and the sort of people that we typically work with.
Nice.
I love the contrast that both of you drew between Mach49 and traditional consulting firms. So I want to go back to your mothership, if you will, Sukhinder, before we close in the last few minutes, and that is, when you look at your experience with Mach49 that led to the incubation of Pear.AI, in a sense, how does that compare with other innovation efforts in your mothership? In terms of clock speed, in terms of success and the like.
So, because the corporate is big, let me put it this. So you don't know everywhere what is going on. But as far as I know, what we have seen is we have been, a successful, let's say, incubation. We did it, and we did an exit. We have sold the company also. So we did it all through. So as far as I know, we are the first one, and I think it's been an example within the corporate how to do it together with Mach49, where you create a business, you incubate it. It's even, so just imagine this corporate is based in Europe. In America, they're nothing. So it's a new country. It's even a new market, so where we want to go. And it's a new product. So everything is new. So it's totally out of their comfort zone, and then with a partner of Mach49, they created something. They had the people which were put to lead it, made it successful. The innovation board, which was there, supported it. So in that, it's a success story how to do it. And it's been used also, to show, what great things we could do as a corporate, as long as we open to do something different. And this is what I think, Dave, I like the way you said it. So if you have like Patrick Lammers, inspirational, entrepreneurial, managers, which really want to think differently, you can do with a partner like Mach49, you can do something, very successful as Pear.AI is.
So one question, why did, after all of you worked so hard, why did the company want to sell it?
And it's a great question. So we came to a certain stage and, we're in America. So, and there is no other business in America. So there were some internal reorganizations within the corporate, but this is also where coming on is being honest. So I presented because we were growing and growing. And then there comes a stage where you say, listen, we need the next round of investments to grow this company. But then also, somebody came and said, I want to acquire it. And then what you do is, and that's what I think you should do. I was the CEO. You should honestly go back to the corporate, say, what does make sense? And in the state where the company was, with reorganizations going on, with also, some acquisitions on a corporate level going on, I told them, I said, listen, based on what I see, the appetite you have and the priorities you have in the company, I think it would be better to sell it. And the other element was an offer came around, which I thought would be very, very advantageous for the corporate. So it was just an open discussion. So and that is the way I work. I recommended, I said, these are the two options. This is my recommendations. And then we as a team, the board I had and myself had that discussion, and this came out.
Lovely story. So I realize we're coming to the end of our time as well.
Yeah.
So were there questions I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I think there is so much more to tell, and we can go on for hours, and I think it was just it was a great experience. I must be honest, it is an experience which will go. And I think it's really, it's not that I build the team. I think we all build the team. We all as a team build Pear.AI. So I always say, and Dave knows it, when I still look at Pear.AI, I see elements of Dave. I see elements of Peter into it. All the people which contributed to it is what Pear.AI is. And that's what I like. It's not something I created or Mach49 created. This is something, and that is, I think it's the real power of Mach49. You created something together uniquely. So that is the only thing I think I really would like to say.
Dave, anything I should have asked I didn't ask?
Sukhinder, new venture creation is by its nature circuitous and nonlinear and indirect. You did not take a straight line path towards finding the customers where you struck pay dirt, where you struck gold. Talk a little bit to aspiring entrepreneurs about how you finally came upon your winning market segmentation and your valuable customer relationships.
That's a great question, Dave. And like you said, so for me, if I look at Sam, when we came to the winning, it was really, believing in yourself. I really start with it. Look, it's very easy to give up. I would say that, and you just said it, Dave, linear. My life has never been linear. Whenever there is something linear, I said, oh gosh, I need to do something different. So that is also the nature of the beast. But what I would say is, when we were talking with this customer, we had a whole bunch of it, But then there were, and I can't say the name, but there were 2 customers. And when I spoke with them, you know, this is the first suggestion, they liked it. They said, hey, great, Sukhjinder, this is a great product. But then the next time I spoke with them, I said, you know, it's a nice product, but what will it take me for you to buy the product? You know, because that is where you want to do. Everybody can say it's nice. So what is it in there? And this is where it really, really became for me, when a customer said, listen, if you do this, I am going to buy that product. I will have that belief in it. And this is when I thought, and when the customer said that to us, and these are 2 things. This is what you need to do. And the other thing is, you need to be part of it. That was what the customer said, because that is what I see keep on, but people just don't buy, again, a product or a company. They also relate to the people behind it. And this is when I thought, yes, I have something now, because this is a customer which is willing to pay for it. And he said, I want not just this product, I want you. And with me, what he means is not just me, but it's the team, it's everything around it.
Right. Beautiful story. Beautiful story. I realize we're coming to the close of time. I want to close with one last mischievous question for you, Sukhjinder.
Okay.
So after going through the Mach49 process, did all of the learning transfer to your home life? What does your wife say about you? How have you changed as a result of working through the Mach49 process?
Oh, that is a great. You should ask my wife about that. You know, so that's the thing. It is. I think what she would say, I have a little bit more of patience. Not a lot, just a tiny bit. And where this is coming from, and I can also tell you why I think she said that, and I also know where it's coming from. It's actually coming from Dave. Dave has taught me also, when we were doing synthesizing, I'll go back to synthesizing, you know, that sometimes look at something, just really look at something, look at the different post-its. That's how I remember it. Look at the different post-its and take that 5 seconds just to look at it. Don't say anything, just to look at it. And I think I did that a little bit. I don't think 5 seconds, but maybe 2 seconds. So that is what I think my wife would say, a little bit more patience into that. So that's what I can think of. Lovely
story. Lovely story. It's really been a joy listening to the both of you describe, you know, as Dave so wonderfully puts it, the journey that you were on with Mach49. It wasn't linear. It was circuitous. You go and you come back and you go, and then you sort of come back. But what I love about the story is the balance again between going fast and going slow. Using the accelerator, using the brake. In this case, the brake of customer insight, the brake of customer understanding, and so on. A lovely story. Any closing words, Dave?
I hope listeners all take away the message that, first of all, no one ever has the right to use the words just or easy when it comes to new venture creation. There's no such thing as, well, we just need to, no just. But these are learnable skills. These are not some sort of innate talents, okay? Sure, some people, like a hormonal optimist like Sukhjinder, are better suited to entrepreneurship than others. But the fact is, these are learnable skills. And I have to tell you, we've never worked in any vertical industry with anyone, with any global culture, with any type of person where we couldn't get successful results. So people should understand that these are usable, accessible.
Wonderful. And I think I want to also sort of end on the point that you teed up, Dave, about travel and discovery and curiosity being so central. Of course, while Sukhjinder has traveled all over the world, but what's interesting is the Mach49 process allowed him and his team to travel really in their imagination. Not just their imagination, but their resolve too. So thank you so very much, both of you, for your time, wisdom, and candor.